Welcome to Lower the Bar with John and Joe. Remember to breathe. This is your Power Hour. Welcome back, everybody, to Lower the Bar with John and Joe. And obviously, I'm John.
And I'm Joe.
Welcome.
We're happy to have you back again.
Yeah, really glad, guys.
Thanks for all the emails that you sent this week. We did manage to answer them all. And that made us realize that we are going to continue with empathy because you all had so many questions. And we feel that we have some good answers for you today, some ways to work with being empathic, setting boundaries, etc. But before we do that, John, can you tell us a little bit about cell memory and emotional resonance? Because that plays such a big part in what we do, how we feel.
Well, that's a loaded question.
All
but I'm going to
questions
try. Cell memory is what we carry in our bodies from either traumas from childhood, experiences in our lives that we had a connection with deeply, not something surface, something that really impacted us in our lives. It could be from past lives. There are many times, and I have clients who feel emotions, things come up in their life, and they have not a clue. Why am I so melancholy today? Why am I feeling like this? And I let them know that it's cell memory. And we need to learn how to identify it because it can be really obstructive, confusing, create anxiety. Because I'm like, why am I feeling so upset right now?
I have clients who come in and say, I don't know why I'm sad. I have nothing to be sad about in my conscious mind.
Exactly. That is the definition of cell memory, something like that. But now let's go into explaining. We were talking about this earlier. When you see like the dog commercial where the abused dogs and, I can't watch it, Joe. I have to turn the channel, but it triggers something in me. And that's cell memory.
What does it trigger? I mean, it triggers different things for different people, but in particular,
for me,
when you see that, what does that trigger?
I get angry.
You get angry at the owners.
Yes. The neglect. How do people treat animals this way? How do just this lack of compassion? It's upsetting me.
But then
it bothers me.
Sometimes I think there are a lot of animals where seniors have had to be in placement and the animals are old. And so they aren't abused or neglected. So there's a whole variety of reasons these animals are there. But the commercials really, really put the focus on abuse and neglect.
Yes. So that triggers a memory or, and we've discussed this before,
feelings.
you hear a certain song.
Yeah.
And it's not just, it makes you feel good. Sometimes you get those pins and you get the goosebumps.
You're right back at that day or night, whatever it was.
That's cell memory. Yeah. And it's really, really, really important that we really do learn to identify it and understand it and learn how to integrate that because that's how we move through it. So those things don't bother us anymore.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk?
I just want to say that sometimes they're entertaining. Like today we were listening to music and it just reminded me of the songs my dad used to sing with another man that sang with him. And they sang beautifully together. And it was back, they would sing songs from the 40s because obviously they're older than me. And that brings back good memories. So they're good and bad memories.
There's no judgment in this.
No.
It's just an observation of what happens and then again being able to identify it. Now if it's a positive vibration,
enjoy it.
Yes, but my point is we don't need to clear that vibration because it puts you in a state of happiness or joy or you're feeling love or connection. But when they trigger negative emotions, when they trigger
a response that usually happens after someone has done something 5 or 6 times, but this is the very first time. And let's say a husband and wife, and the wife gets furious at something he did. Mm-hmm. And the husband goes, I'm sorry. I didn't know you'd get so mad because I did that. Then she recognizes this is not the first time someone did this.
Right.
I've been triggered before, and now this emotional resonance, and I'm sorry I got so mad, but it's happened before.
Right.
But most people don't take the time to recognize where it came from, move through it, and change their response.
Exactly. But you were sharing it as far as a relationship, and we're going to actually get into talking about empaths in relationships and boundaries and how you can navigate that. But why don't you just talk a little bit about?
Well, last time we talked about the broad categories, physical empaths and emotional empaths. And of course, there's a huge diverse group in between. And what was interesting is I read some research where researchers discovered that the brain cells, there are a certain myriad of brain cells that each person may or may not be born with that enables them to mirror the emotions of others, from pain to joy. Some people have this much of it. No, of course, I'm exaggerating. And some people have very little of it. Empaths are hyper responsive, and to their mirror neurons really create a response more so than people that don't have it. So, what does the life of an empath look like? How does it affect their health? How do you think being an empath could possibly affect your health, John?
Well, that's a really loaded question too, because there's so many levels of who we are in terms of how we feel about ourselves, what we feel we deserve. All of those narratives play into and amplify these emotions that an empath has.
Especially if we have fear.
Yes. Yes. It's very powerful. It can be debilitating and even emotionally paralyzing.
Let me talk about a situation that is exactly that. I had a family member who was in nursing school a long time ago. And she must have not realized that she feared having all the diseases that she was being treated. And she was in a 3-year program. After a year and a half, she dropped out. She had every disease that she was treating. She was a basket case. And we didn't know then what we know now about treating that kind of emotional debilitation or that kind of empathy. And that is certainly not the usual thing in health. The biggest thing in health is the people who are empaths often feel very tired. And that's because they're around so many people. And even if those people aren't speaking with them, it's the energy they're receiving.
Very good point, because you're always on.
Yeah, you're always ready. You're
the
right.
radar's there.
Yes.
You're picking up everything. So you never really, can relax, or, you're always at the effect of something. And
If you're
even
an
people
empath,
that have
yeah.
some awareness of that might even be scared, because it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Or what am I going to feel now? Or what am I going to react to?
And there's so-and-so. I know he or she's going to come over and talk to me.
Oh, yeah. It's the
So
same
yeah,
thing.
it's
impact.
exhausting. So you have to learn skills to protect yourself, especially if you're in a situation you're going to have to stay at that meeting or that party or that convention, whatever it is. Tell your partner, I'm going to step out for some air. Make sure you have a partner that's understanding of your needs. Go out to your car or go out on the veranda and just be for as long as you have to be.
Yeah, take that breath.
Yes. Take 3 deep breaths through your nose, count to 3, out your mouth, count to 6, and relax. Just relax. And it totally refreshes you to go back in. When you know you can't go back anymore, go home. You have to take care of yourself.
Yes. And you have to set internal boundaries for yourself. Knowing what I can handle and what I can't handle. And what's too much for me, or how do I deal with this? If you can structure yourself that way, it will definitely help you navigate your world. So,
and getting a good night's sleep really, really helps, because that's going to change everything. If you didn't sleep well last night and now you're going to some place where you feel like you're on, sometimes you have to go to it.
Yes.
If you're at a convention and people are expecting you, sometimes you even have to speak at it. you're there.
it's one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves. Now, there are variables in meditation and focus that we can regenerate ourselves, but that's really when the body is regenerating itself because the brain isn't working. You're sleeping, you're not thinking, you're in your subconscious when you're sleeping. And it's the time that we allow our bodies to take
heal.
over and to heal.
And
And
get
also
nurtured.
very important that that's when spirit works on us as
Mhm,
well
mhm.
from the other side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So sleep is very important.
Very, very.
And what do a lot of people do that are empaths? They wind up getting involved in addictions. And I'm not saying necessarily an addiction, they need to go away for treatment, but they might drink too much alcohol. Why? Because it helps them with the pain, the emotional pain. They don't realize they just need to maybe go take a hot bath with Epsom salts and just be,
And
or a
so-
shower.
Yeah, and sometimes those emotions are amplified, where maybe you're in a situation where something happens, and if you weren't an empath, you react to it in a certain way,
Mhm.
but because you're an empath, it becomes that much more amplified, and maybe it's
Absolutely.
inappropriate. Those reactions are exaggerated from what really where they're meant to vibrate at or where they are.
Especially if you have no control over the situation, but you
Well,
worry
that's
so
it.
much and get anxiety and oh my, because you're taking on the other person's feelings.
And again, the most important part of everything we're talking about here is identifying it, becoming
Yes.
aware of it so it
Awareness.
doesn't impact you guys. And that's probably the most important thing that we can say about this. It's understanding, but it's really learning how to identify so you can set boundaries, you can handle it internally, you can navigate it.
The most common one is food addictions.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean necessarily overeating. It means making compulsive decisions, taking in food that doesn't really serve your body well. I mean, look at 80% of our country is obese.
But let me say something. You do not have to be obese to have a food addiction.
No, definitely
You can
not.
be thin completely and still, again, it's a compulsion that is attached to a feeling
Yes.
that's either presented or triggered somehow internally.
Mhm. And you feel like you've either satisfied the feeling with the food or the drink, or you've distracted yourself enough from the feeling.
Right.
But guess what? When you're done eating or drinking, whatever, or if you drink so much and you wake up the next day, it's still there. It's still there because you haven't dealt with the problem,
Yes.
the core of the problem.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Well,
Yes.
just saying.
So it's important, I think, again, for our listeners to begin to understand how they feel and then identify it again so you can integrate and these things don't impact you. And that's kind of why we're here, Joe. This is really, I mean, at least I know both of us feel this way, but
Uh-huh.
again, these are practical applications that we want to share with our audience so they
Yep.
can do the work.
And just become aware. Identify the feeling. Look at how you're responding to it. How's that working for
Right.
you?
And I look, I'll only identify it and talk for myself. This changed my life when I was able to understand that and realize the point of origination, what was going on, identifying it and integrating it again so it didn't impact me.
And changing the response to the feeling.
Yes, but again, repetition, repetition, repetition. It
Yeah.
was the only way.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
just sort of did it, it didn't really move through me. But I found when I kept reminding myself and understanding what was going on, then it changed.
And also think of empaths have a tendency to be impulsive. You know, and I was just saying the other day how
Ooh.
we drove by one of the ice cream stores that are just open in the summertime, and I saw it advertised. I don't like a lot of ice cream, but I do like vanilla and peach. And I remember emotional resonance one time years ago having homemade peach ice cream.
Mm.
and it was so good. And I saw peach on the sign. And I said to my husband, let's pull in here and get an ice cream cone. He goes, no, that's not a good idea. And he kept driving. Okay. I
That's
said,
really funny.
you're right. That was just an emotional thing, impulsive. And I said, thanks. You're right. I didn't need that. It just tastes good, but I wasn't having like anxiety and I
No,
need
right,
to
I
cover
get
it
it.
up. So that's just,
But-
it's
but-
impulsive too.
But him telling you that is the same kind of response that we get from if we are able to step outside the circle and take that breath.
Yes.
It sort of stops the sequence. The synapses aren't receiving that impulse signal because now you're distracted. You're thinking of something else. Oh, no, we don't need to stop here, Joe. We're just going to continue.
We're on the way home.
Right. And then you go, oh, yeah, I don't need that ice cream. Like what? You know,
Or you say, well, that wasn't very nice. Turn around.
right.
Which I
Son
did
of a
not do.
bitch.
If you wanted it, you turn around,
Right,
wouldn't you?
right. But
No.
it's true. And
It was just impulsive.
that's the dynamic. That's really the key to moving through it.
Mhm.
So
And the more you say, I don't need that. I like that. I don't need that. The easier it gets.
it does. But again, it's awareness and repetition, because the whole idea of that is you become so conscious of it, you don't become unconscious when it happens. So then it doesn't trigger you. You can step outside the circle and go, oh, it's happening, and then change the response.
Mhm.
And then you feel better afterwards.
Absolutely. You feel proud of yourself. You feel like you achieved something. And let's
Lower the bar.
Lower the
Those
bar.
are
Oh,
those
are the-
moments.
Yes,
though.
absolutely.
That's it. It's that time
And
when
you need to look at it
Mhm.
and believe, accept, receive, and receive your own validation for, hey, I said no to that. I didn't need that. That was 300 or 400 calories that I don't need. I mean, this is just a simple thing. And have gratitude that you did it. And it gets easier and easier,
But
especially when it doesn't say peach.
Yeah.
What? I'm sorry.
But that's the key to health and wellness.
Mhm.
You know, we need to acknowledge ourselves, appreciate just the little work.
Mhm.
And then it just becomes different. It becomes positive. You really begin to appreciate yourself for allowing this, as opposed to never acknowledging it and then just feeling frustrated, or, oh, I didn't get that, or I should have had that, I should have, could have, would have.
I
It doesn't
feel
validate
empowered
you
when I
anymore.
do that. I feel so
Yes.
empowered. And I think
Exactly.
I do have power over myself. I do. Well, I'm learning more and more how powerful our minds are, and that we do have the power over our minds. We have the power. You have no idea how much power you have that you haven't even tapped, because we've been brought up with people telling us what to do from pregnancy on. But there comes a time when you have to realize, I'm going to take responsibility for my path and I can change it. So what about parents? Being an empathetic parent. Oh, yes. 3 kids in school, husband working shift work. That's me.
Very tough.
Very tough. Especially when your most important job in the world is being a parent. And when you have to wait till they go to bed at night to study, but you decide you want another master's degree. I did all my schooling after I had children. That's not the way to do it. Try to do it before you have all your kids, or at least most of it. So I was in school for a good 10 years, both day and night school.
Mm.
And when you have 3 kids, it's so difficult because you can be so exhausted, but you can't be. Even no matter how exhausted you are, you have to deal with it. You have to go to their things, you have to tend to them, and you have to be present. That's the most important thing. So I would wait till they went to bed at night to do homework. But another thing I did is I often would, if I had a big exam after they went to bed, I would put Epsom salt in hot water in a bathtub and I'd sit in it till I learned everything I needed for that exam the next day. And, I'd come out as a prune and the water would be cold. Then I'd have to take a hot shower. But you know what? I was ready for the exam the next day. I was already showered and I was relaxed so I could sleep. Because that's another thing. when I had an exam, I had to get a really good mark or else what? I wasn't happy with myself. I had no one that said to me, you only got 85.
Well, again, lower the bar. We
I know,
all
it's
put
just-
those expectations, which are destructive. They're not healthy. for
They are
us.
not healthy because it's ridiculous.
But
It's
somehow in
ridiculous.
what you just said, you somehow innately knew how to take care of yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
which is important. And I think a lot of us do. But again, it's the awareness. The more we're aware of our
Mhm.
world around us and how it unfolds, the more, I guess, the better it is, the easier it becomes to navigate. Knowledge is power. And the more we know, the easier it gets.
I don't think women realize when they have children and they're working how difficult it is to work a 9 to 5, 9 to 7, bring stuff home, calls on the weekend. I didn't. I had a 9 to 3 job, but I then did some homework at home, preparing for my teaching job. It is hard to be everything to everybody. And it's a fact that 75% of the work done at home is done by the woman. So
Well, I have
most of the time.
such respect and admiration for women and what they have to go through. And now imagine being middle-aged, you're an empath, and now you're going through menopause.
Oh,
Your hormones going crazy, your estrogen levels dropping, all of that narrative. Now imagine what that feeds into a giant crap storm of confusion, not understanding, impulsive
I gotta tell-
responses.
I gotta tell you something.
I
I had a
can't
client
wait to hear
that
this.
just called me today, and she said she was telling me all this. She was not calling me for any of this, but she said, "And I'm going through menopause, and I told my husband if he puts that soap, the detergent, on the right hand side instead of the left hand side one more time." She said, I called my mother and I said, Mom, he did it again. He did it again, Mom. She said, what? Put the soap on the other side? Come on. You've been married 26 years. Get over it. And she said, okay, Mom. And she was laughing to me. But she
Sure.
said, when I'm in a hormonal thing, beside taking in emotions, those are the things that I respond to.
That's a tough nut.
That
I
is,
mean,
I said,
really,
you know
that
what you
is-
need to say? I'm going to teach you something. Let it go. Just let it go. She said, I know I needed to hear that. I knew I called
You
you
know,
for something.
Speaking of everything, and this really ties into everything we're talking about today, is purging and clearing all of that energy in everything that we do. That's what meditation, awareness, all of that sort of, all those modalities take us to that place of forgiveness, of letting go. That's the most important thing. We are so hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up. A lot has to do with our upbringing, what we were exposed to, but a lot of us are just so hard on us, and we never give ourselves a break. And that's really what we want to communicate to you guys, is learning to do that, learning to forgive, learning to release all of this energy and things that impact us in our lives. And the greater awareness we have and the ability to do that, we begin again to create a world that brings us what we need. We don't suffer the way we do. And believe me, we suffer. I will speak personally. I've been through enough emotional crap in my life and suffering and pain to really understand that narrative. And again, it all changed for me when I learned to identify it, and also be okay with it. That's the thing too. We're suddenly feeling some kind of angst or angina or shame or whatever, and we don't let it rest. We don't let that be. We're immediately trying to, push it out, or, we need to experience it. We need to let it sit and rest and then clear it.
First, you need to say, what was I supposed to learn from that?
Well, getting back to that narrative, and really people need to know this. and we're going to talk about this in other podcasts, everything that happens to us
Mhm.
in our lives is only about us, no matter what it is. Someone could have pissed you off or did something in the office or did something, your children trigger something. It's not about them. You're not getting angry at them because they did it. You're getting angry because it's triggering something in you.
Yes.
And the universe presented this to you at that moment. So you move through it. You let go of it. So it doesn't keep presenting itself.
Right.
That's the whole point of these exercises, is to, again, understand, acknowledge, let it be, and move through it so it isn't created again. You're not suffering from it, or it's not impacting you in the way it normally
And you won't
does.
forget it,
It's not a distraction. Yes.
but it won't be the same emotional trigger.
Exactly.
It won't be.
Exactly. So that's a very important piece of this as well. And
But so is the forgiveness that you said, because apparently this woman's husband, she always says, I'm so sorry. I was just, I was having an emotional moment with menopause. And he goes, that's okay. And he just rolls with it,
right.
which is great, because apparently he isn't triggered by it. He's used to it.
But we need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even though we're doing that in that moment of I'm sorry, that's more placating. That's
Of
more
course.
just an automatic response. It's really resonating in that space, understanding, identifying it, and then just letting it be okay. Like, it's just something that happened, and now I'm going to clear it. I'm going to let go of it and not hold on to it. So the next time you don't have that same feeling or that same response.
Or twice as much, because
Right.
it's so strongly
Exactly.
ingrained in your
Exactly.
cells. Cell memory is incredible. It really is incredible. Well, one of the things that I learned about is that women and men can come home from work and they might have vampires, energy vampires at work.
Soul suckers.
Energy
I know many
vampires,
of
soul
those.
suckers. And you need to learn to protect yourself. You don't want to lose your job. So you don't want to sometimes respond in the way that you first feel you want to. But when somebody's sucking the energy out, you need to set boundaries.
Compassionate, but detached.
Yes.
That's the only way
I
you can
wish
deal
I
with it.
could talk to you right now, but I can't. I'm in the middle of a project that I have to finish. I don't know.
Well,
You
however it comes out.
Yeah.
Though.
I mean, you don't really wish you could talk to them. I can't talk to you right now. Yes, I see that. So empaths have to learn to set boundaries. And even at work, they might have to replenish their energy. How? 2 minutes at your desk, get everything out of your mind and just sit. Have a little thing on there saying 2-minute meditation. So somebody sees you at the door, they can wait 2 minutes. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to keep yourself in good emotional health. So I think next week when we get together, we're going to continue this because everybody seems to be enjoying it.
Well, speaking of that, though, you have to take ownership. And I tell all my clients
Of your feelings, you mean?
Yeah, of everything. You're the chairman of this corporation. You're the only one, and no one's going to do it for you.
Right.
You are on this journey. It's not outside of you. So you have to take responsibility for changing your behaviors, the way you feel. If it's not making you feel good, there are exercises and practices that you can execute that will move you through it. Remember,
even if you have to go into the ladies' room or the men's room for
whatever it is, emotional responses only last 90 seconds chemically. Everything after that is choice. So make the right choice for yourself. Make decisions that work for you, not frustrate you.
Yes.
So we are almost done, and we've only touched the surface of this.
I know.
And I think it's really important subject. So we're going to continue this in our next podcast.
Yes, and I want to talk to people about grounding and how important it is to ground. We want to talk about the Schumann resonance and how that's affecting all of us, because the earth is vibrating differently than it did years ago. And what does that mean? I know I just learned what that means about a year ago, and it's very, very interesting. So thank you so much for joining us for our 4th podcast. And I guess we're going to keep this book up here because we're still talking about empaths and emotions. If you have any questions, that you feel have not been answered, perhaps, please go to lowerthebar@gmail.com and ask us. Perhaps we'll mention it on we'll try to on our next podcast.
Thank you for the privilege of your time. And we really appreciate you joining us, and we hope to see you again. So love and light to everybody, and look forward to the next time.